Hey there everybody, my name is Roger Craig Smith, and we are going to break down my most iconic roles, which for a guy with really bad self-esteem is just sort of weird to even use the term iconic. I guess just roles that I've done that you may have heard of feels better to me, but most iconic roles, we'll go with that. It's fine, it's not my show.
Thought I caught your scent.
I know I caught yours. Ah, Batman. I've used the word surreal so many times to describe what that was like, but getting the call that you got cast as the voice of Batman in an upcoming game is both exhilarating and scary as all get out, because you know that Kevin Conroy has established this character so much in the animated world, in the interactive world.
Every decision you've ever made ends with death and misery.
And that so many other people have lent their voice to this character before you that it's going to be like, what a cool feather in your cap from a career perspective. But also, man, oh man, oh man, I hope that I do this justice to the point where fans will understand what we were attempting to do with this particular project, that kind of thing. But so the interesting part about sort of taking on the role and even going through the audition process was how much we kind of tried to mess with the voice print, because of the fact that so many sort of versions of Batman have existed. So the idea that we were going to just do a certain delivery style might not have worked well. So we spent a considerable amount of time. I would say the first week of sessions, we really tried to kind of dial in what version of Batman we wanted to kind of emulate, because obviously you've got like the Christian Bale version, and we kind of even toyed around with a little more throaty, gravelly kind of stuff.
If I get him to you, can you get him to talk?
What you will hear in the game, there's moments when he picks Joker up and says, you know, how many lives did you just take?
How many lives did you just take? None!
It sprinkles in a little bit of that version of it because we wanted it to be a familiar Batman, but also unique to this origin story. So it was interesting to kind of go through that process. It was like in the audition process, you're trying different things. You're taking different approaches to how you would deliver a certain line, trying to give them variations on it and be malleable. But yeah, we clearly took our time on that first week. I just recall us trying to go down a few different paths as far as which version we were going to go with, and we finally settled on something that would make really good sense for it being, since it's an origin story. This is where we can understand that this version of Batman will be what Kevin, and with Troy's performance as Joker, what Mark had established as the Joker, that we go, okay, I can see where these characters would become those characters that we know, especially in the Arkham universe. So I work where I step into the booth and the director is going to tell me exactly what they're going for, and that can be, even with a legacy character, I'm a hired gun in reality. So I'm not going to step in and go, here's this version of this character that I do the way that I do. In comparison to, say, Arkham Origins to Batman Unlimited, that would have been a too aggressive version of Batman for something that was more family friendly. Or when it comes to, obviously, Superman Red Son, spoiler alert, very different version of Batman than I've ever played for a number of different reasons. You got the accent for one.
Now she's as obedient to me as those poor mind-jacked dissidents are to you.
But also dark. It's a dark version of Batman that was kind of cool. I loved that moment. It doesn't matter what character I've done or how many times I've done it. When I step into the booth, whoever's directing and whoever's behind the production of it, it's going to be a collaborative effort for us to figure out what version of this character we want to conjure up. And a lot of things can influence that. So I just try to be as ready for anything as possible, while also speaking up if I feel like this feels out of character. You know, I've always said, there's this box that these characters sort of live in that you can play around only so much before it starts to really kind of feel like, no, that just doesn't feel right for the character. And that's where maybe I would take a stand if I felt like we were doing anything like that. But with these types of characters, it's so rare that you would have somebody do anything like that. You might have somebody do that for like a marketing, aspect, or somebody who doesn't understand the way that a lot of us covet these characters. But no, in everything I've been a part of, it's always just a big collaborative effort on the part of the production staff, director, myself. We work together to figure out what version of this character we're going to do in that given moment.
There is one thing I do know. I have a job to do. and I'm gonna see it through.
Ah, Chris. Redfield. I need an egg. You know what's funny is I look back on Resident Evil 5. I think one of my favorite moments was working with Stephanie Shea and Liam O'Brien, who were directing me on this project. And Liam happened to be on the other side of the glass in one of these sessions, and this was going to be the first big video game role I had ever booked. And I honestly hadn't had too much experience with the whole Resident Evil series leading up to that, and all of a sudden it's like I'm in this session with Liam, and I just kind of paused and I was like there's gonna be a lot of attention on this game, huh? Like a lot of people like the Resident Evil series of games, and he starts laughing. He goes, "Yeah, there's probably gonna be a few people checking this one out," kind of thing. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Okay, I was like, yeah, I guess." Yeah, it's going to be interesting. That whole thing was such a, that was one of the first, big, long-form facial motion capture jobs that I had done. It was kind of early on in some of that facial motion capture technology, so we were still using glue and the little reflective dots and all that stuff, so there was a long process involved getting him on and all that, and they would constantly fall off, and you were being asked to make big facial expressions, which was kind of like trying to finesse the facial movements for the data that they needed for the computer versus delivering a performance, because you don't want everything to sound like this. It's funny, whenever I see things like this, I always go back to the experience that I had being in the booth, working with the people that I worked with, and the sort of friendships and the bonds that are created in those moments. And so I just think back to a lot of really fond memories of goofing off with Stephanie and Liam in the booth and having a good time making art and knowing that what we were going to do was hopefully going to be received well. But yeah, Chris was just like, what a cool thing to be able to be a part of and to attempt to do outlandish sort of stories and punching boulders and all that good stuff. Yeah, it was a really cool role. And just, I need an egg. Getting to say that over and over and over again, in that Chris voice. Give me an egg. Use this. I need an egg. It never gets old. If I'm at the supermarket and I go in for eggs, I don't just say, where are your eggs? I got to go up to somebody and go, I need an egg. Give me an egg. That's the way you do it. That and pressing the B button over and over and over again so I could hear Sheva constantly say my name. Roger. That never got old for me, personally. Roger. What? It's my name. Roger. Yeah, say it again. All right, Sheva. Roger. Yeah.
Pezzo di merda! Vorrei solo che avessi sofferto di più! Hai avuto la fine che meritavi! Spero che Enough, Ezio! Show some respect. Respect?
Ah, yes. Ezio da Firenze, Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Ezio. Yeah, this is another one of those roles where I just think back to the camaraderie, the joy of getting to work with people that I became good friends with as a result of being introduced to this character, this franchise, the project. This was a nice one for me because there was no version of, well, you're not my Ezio. There wasn't he was a brand new character that we were getting a chance to kind of create from scratch. And there were genuine moments where I was given a chance to try to really connect with things and to deliver lines in a way that I would like to try to do something to bring about an element of heart to the character that was rare.
Caterina, no. I can't ask you to sacrifice your children.
Nobody's sacrificing anything. Go get them back for me, Ezio.
See.
Like I said earlier, with like a character like a Batman or a Sonic, there's certain things you do that you feel like, well, this would be canon or this would be in character. This makes sense to this version of the character, but you can't go too far beyond it. Whereas with a new character, you're kind of establishing it. And so I don't know that it's so much of a challenge with a new character as it is just at least a unique opportunity to sort of create and to create that box. By the time you're done with about a week's worth of recording and you're well into the storyline, you kind of got an idea of where you want to push the character before it starts to feel unnatural or too much or too forced or too silly or too aggressive or whatever it might be. And it sort of kind of takes a life of its own. It takes on a life of its own as this weird sort of like audible organic thing. But I don't know that it's necessarily a challenge with a new character, other than you have a little bit more creative freedom. But with great freedom comes great responsibility.
Hey guys, what's going on? You having a party or something?
Surprise!
Aw, you guys. Aha, this guy, the blue hedgehog.
How do you not, after 10 years, always hold a very special place in your heart for something that is so iconic in gaming? I always laugh in my career and say, like, I'm only as good as anything you've ever heard of. So if you're on a plane and somebody says, what do you do? And if you even bother answering truthfully, then say, like, oh, I'm a voice actor, voices for cartoons and games and stuff like that. It doesn't matter the age range of the person. It used to be that it was like, oh, I'd throw out, some random show that I narrated or did stuff like that, trying to think, what's the broadest audience that would... And if I say Sonic the Hedgehog, people go, oh, and of all ages, all backgrounds, everybody's kind of heard of the character, seen the character, familiar with it. So to get to be that voice it's an absolute honor.
You guys have your work cut out for you.
An adventure's no fun if it's too easy.
It was kind of funny in me thinking, like, man, if I got this, that would be another kind of crazy feather in your cap kind of thing, going like, yeah, this is neat. You're going to go from, this Loverboy assassin character from history to, the boulder punching, badass guy, to all of a sudden this really cool, iconic, representation of gaming, and as well as also doing something that was family friendly that you knew would be really hitting a very wide audience as a result of that. Because arguably some of these other games are for a more mature audience, whereas this is like it can be for anybody. So. And it was more fun, too, in the sense that this, unlike those other roles, unlike Batman, unlike Chris Redfield or Ezio, this was a chance for me to kind of tap into the comedic background that I had and get to sort of like, be funny and silly, which is usually my go-to. Which is why I can't believe I've been able to voice things like, Ezio or Batman or that kind of thing. But no, that was another reason why it was so much fun kind of stepping into something like this and getting to play around and have fun and be snarky and smart alecky. And yeah.
It's okay, I got you. I know CPR. I mean, if you didn't want me to do that, you'd be dying. Except that, I need to save you, but I am a gentleman, contrary to what people say.
Ah, Mirage. Good old Mirage. That one. Okay, so here's one where you go, I don't even know who would have thought. I mean, I had no clue what I was stepping into, what I was getting myself involved with. I knew so very little about the project. I mean, obviously this was like, is this Titanfall? Is this another version of Titanfall? Or what are we doing here? Are these the pilots in the mechs? Like what? And because gaming companies will often be cryptic and rightfully so, and try to, sort of protect as much of their intellectual property as possible, even when they're in the middle of a production, then all of a sudden, I remember doing the trailer, recorded voiceover for all the lines and the game and all that stuff, and then I just sort of kind of forgot about it. But I remember thinking, and I've told the story, the director was, we were on a lunch break, and the director, Drew, I was just kind of picking his brain, like, so when are you hoping this thing's going to be done? And he's like, oh, January. And I think this was like October or November. And I was, in my mind, I'm like, okay, wow, you're going to turn this around in a very short period of time. Like good luck with that. And then he was explaining, like, yeah, we're just going to drop it. We're just going to drop the trailer, the game, and everything's going to be free to play, and it's all coming out on the same day. And I was thinking, wow, okay, that's crazy. That's like, who does that? Why don't we, man, you got to tease it, you got to get your hashtags built up, you get all this. And so all that happened, we're done, I move on, 3 months later, I think it was the night of Super Bowl or the Monday after Super Bowl, I think it was. And all of a sudden I start getting these text messages from friends going, you in this new game? Are you in this new game? And I'm like, which game? Because you got to be careful when you answer questions like that, because you don't want to say like, oh yeah, the new Star Wars game? Yeah, I'm totally in it. And so I get these text messages, and I'm like, what game? And they're like, I don't know, this Apex Legends game. And we often work under code names when we do these projects, so I hadn't known of it being called Apex Legends, or didn't recall that was the official name of it. And all of a sudden, it's like, all these text messages start pouring in. People going like, dude, this game's insane. Like, this is awesome. You're in that. That's you, right? You're the hologram dude? And I'm like, yeah. So I got it, fired it up, played it, died 10 times in a row in my first, in my first 10 games, and was like, I'm horrible at this game. The game's going fast. But all of a sudden it just exploded and became this thing. And all of us that get to be involved with this cast, we have So much fun getting to be a part of the fan base, the community that's been created as a result of the incredibly awesome writing and the production value of the game. And who'd have thought, but it's so neat to be a part of something like this and watch it again from the ground up just explode and become a thing. And then to also celebrate what that's like with the writers, with the people who have drawn backgrounds, who've done character design, who are creating the next Legends, all that stuff. It's such a neat thing to be one little tiny part in a massive machine of creating something as successful as Apex Legends. So that one, I love getting to do this guy. Yeah, he's one of my favorites for sure. Coming up on Say Yes to the Dress.
It's a no. You don't know what
and say yes. So this is great. Say yes to the dress. This is when I was saying earlier, you're only as good as anything anybody's ever heard of. This is one of those shows that I would say to somebody, if you're on the plane and you're making small talk and they want to know what you've done, I would say, oh, Sonic the Hedgehog, and maybe you'll get somebody to go, no, Assassin's Creed, no, it sounds horrible. It's like, and then I narrated Say Yes to the Dress for a really long time. Like, oh my God, and it's my favorite part is the macho dudes that go like, oh yeah, I don't watch that show, but like my girlfriend or my wife or, it's like my mom, my sister, whatever, you're like, well, they love it, that kind of thing. But, I don't watch the show. Hey, what's up with Randy? Every time he says that, like, a bride looks fantastic, and you're like, oh, don't watch the show much, right? So this is one of those things. It was kind of cool to be a part of a series that I thought always had like a lot of heart, and I thought they were telling some really neat stories. It was nice to just be the guy that would just say, meanwhile, across the salon.
Before hitting the sales floor, Lori schools the staff on how to handle brides who need to find a dress in a hurry.
Today?
It was a bit of a challenge every now and then where it was like, I was flying blind. I was just given a script with lines, and thank goodness there was a producer on the phone, because I've always made the joke, the line might be, meanwhile, across the salon, bride Samantha is wishing that her grandmother could be here for this special moment. And I would have to say, like, okay, there's a couple different ways I could deliver this line, because if grandma is stuck in traffic trying to find parking right now, it's a very different setup than if grandma is in heaven and missing out on this kind of thing. It's like, it's two different ways to deliver that line. But really fond memories. And I just think it's such a neat thing. It's like, again, when I get to say, like, I voiced Batman and Say Yes to the Dress, or, I voiced Sonic the Hedgehog and Ezio Auditore, stuff like that. It's just, those are those surreal pinch me moments where you're like, yeah, it's kind of a neat thing. A ton of people have seen that series. It continues to this day. It lives on in reruns, and people still text me. I've done really neat little things for very close friends of mine where I've recorded, a mock narration, of the dress selection process for friends of mine, and had fun doing that. I'm a very fortunate human being to have been a part of so many incredible projects, and of course, Say Yes to the Dress is one of those. So yeah, believe it or not, I hold a fond place in my heart for Say Yes to the Dress as well. Hey everybody, thank you so much for revisiting some of those most iconic roles with me, Roger Craig Smith, voice actor who I guarantee you is not going to watch this video and just really cringe at the fact that chest hair is exposed. This is so unflattering. So you're welcome, everyone. Follow me on social media if you want, at Roger Craig Smith. I gotta go. I gotta go buy a new shirt. I'm gonna lose sleep over this, you guys. Hope you're happy. Roger. Yeah.